Hello, horse racing fans, and welcome to the Sport of Kings, your window into the world of horse racing. Today, we'll talk with Justin Stein on his move to Ontario. We'll have a look at the history behind one of the most successful thoroughbred auctions in the world. High Road to the Derby. We'll have a look at some of the favorites for this year's Run for the Roses. The Salute to the Champions. We'll look at this year's Santa Anita Derby, won by Canadian-owned Brother Derek. And now, here he is, BC's ambassador to the fine world of horse racing, Mr. Tommy Walski.
It is hard to believe that only a couple of years ago, Justin Stein was working as a short order cook in the interior of British Columbia. Since that time, a lot has happened to Justin. Last year, he won the riding title and apprentice title here at Hastings Racecourse. He was also named as finalist for a Sovereign and an Eclipse Award. Before Justin left to go to Woodbine this spring, we caught up with him, and he's our focus on our opening feature for today's program.
Well, the 2005 season was more than I could have hoped for. A lot of things happened, and a lot of goals that basically came up as the season progressed were accomplished, and I was quite pleased with the way it went.
As the meet progressed, when did you start thinking, hey, this is getting pretty good?
Things kind of, I can't remember when things really started to get rolling, but you know, I was really just working on my riding and focusing on what I was doing and making sure I was doing things right and trying not to make mistakes. And I got to the point where most of the horses, if they were able to win, you know, I didn't really blow it with them, which was nice. And that sort of helped me get liver mounts and carry on through the season.
How important was your work ethics? Because you do the job hard.
I think it's really important. It reflects on the type of person you are and the, you know, your willingness to challenge yourself and, you know, go the extra mile for the people you're working for as well.
2005, were you at all intimidated at the beginning of the season?
Well, I wasn't intimidated by the racing. I was really excited about, you know, getting back on the racetrack and riding some races, but I was nervous because I knew that there was a lot at stake, you know, basically my career, whether or not I would be able to make it or not, and I really wanted to make sure that I was able to be a successful rider.
Why do horses run for you?
I just ride them. I just try to ride them to form, you know. I read the form and basically make a plan as to where I want to position my horse, and I just let them do their thing, you know. I ask them to run at the end, and hopefully they'll pick the bit up and go.
Do you notice things different in the jocks as you get to doing better and better and more successful?
Yeah, it changes a little bit, I would say, the dynamics in there. Everybody's quite friendly still, and maybe I get a little bit less advice, you know, as an apprentice. I was receiving a lot of advice, valuable advice at the beginning of the year, but as I progressed and started doing well enough, people sort of left me to learn on my own, and which is fine.
How important it is to listen to when people tell you something?
I think it's really important to listen. I've learned a lot from a lot of the older riders and the journeymen, just from their advice and following it.
What's the toughest thing to deal with when you're winning races?
There's not much. I'll definitely miss Monashi when I leave. That was a big thing that I had to consider leaving. I mean, I wouldn't be riding her, and I'm sure that I would do well with her again this year, but I just kind of realized that in horse racing anything can happen, so I couldn't really just put all my eggs in one basket. But I'll miss her. She's a nice horse, a really nice horse. She can run, and she's really easy to ride. And as far as getting on a horse like her, I never expected, in that early in my career, especially as an apprentice, to be on a horse that nice. And whoever gets to ride her will be very, very lucky and very fortunate, and I hope that they appreciate her.
I think you said you weren't going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I had such a successful year at Hastings that basically a lot of goals that I had in mind were accomplished, and it's kind of like the next step, I suppose, to take that extra challenge. I don't know. I'm quite nervous about going, and hopefully I'll be able to pay all my bills when I get there.
How influential did last year's trip to Woodbine play into the situation?
I would say at the end of the meet, I rode out there for a month, and I would say that the success I had out there at the end of the meet played a big factor in it. I mean, I had a few winners, and I rode maybe 12% wins, so it was something that I thought might be possible. And going out there, one of the goals I have in mind is the Sovereign Award. I'd like to compete for that. It's very important to me.
You got beat last year to Emma Jane Wilson, and you're going to be competing against her this year. How much are you looking forward to that?
I'm looking forward to it quite a bit because she'll have the advantage on me for one thing, and because she's established there, she rode all season last year, so she'll have that support right away, whereas I'll have to sort of prove myself a little bit more and hopefully get the business that I need to be competitive with her.
Back at Woodbine last year, how were you treated in the jocks room, or even in the backstretch at Woodbine?
In the jocks room, I enjoyed the jocks room there. It's a bit more of a serious environment, but everybody there was pretty good to me, I thought. The journeyman riders were nice and they were helpful, so that was good. In the backstretch, the trainers that I was introduced to and met, they all seemed to like me, and I enjoyed them. We worked well together.
Saving Dimes drawn away by 3. This will be a record-setting race for apprentice Justin Stein. Saving Dimes to win it by...
The apprentice record was kind of like an impressive number at the beginning of the year. I was like, wow, that's pretty good. And I thought that I wouldn't get anywhere near that. I was hoping just to have 1 win a day, an average for the season. And that was kind of like my basic goal. And as the season progressed and the time frame was allowing for that record to be broken, I started to focus on that, and that was a big thing for me. It was something I worked towards, and it was pretty exciting when that happened.
The 7 wins in 1 day.
The 7 wins in 1 day was, well, that was just amazing and hard to believe even for me, I suppose.
Any plans, or if the foreseeable future, where you might be back during the season?
I couldn't tell you for sure. Maybe I would get to come back and ride Monashee, but other than that, I don't know. It would be nice. I would like to be able to come back and ride a couple of races on the bull ring for sure.
You got the last word on this interview. Well, what would you like to say?
Well, I would just like everyone to have a good season at all the racetracks, and I hope that I have success in my transition to Woodbine.
And how would you want people to remember this year?
Well, maybe someone will come along one day and hopefully have a season like that as well, at the beginning of their career. Maybe that'll help establish them.
Don't go away. The Sport of Kings will be right back.
Now it's time for a part of the show you all seem to enjoy when it comes to be Derby time, and that would be our road to the Kentucky Derby. 2 races we're going to feature today, and that would be the Florida Derby we'll show in its entirety, and then we're going to give you the stretch drive of the Illinois Derby. Enjoy.
They're at the post. They're off. Sam's Ace and Sharp Humor to the front. Flashy Bull is hard scent, and so is He's an Old Salt. To the outside, Barbaro is close to the pace. Sun River is next. Then comes St. Augustus and Doc Cheney. Rehoboth and High Blues are next, and the early trailer is Charming Image, and the leader to the backstretch is Sharp Humor. Barbaro is into the bid and in the 2-path to the backstretch. Sharp Humor leads it from Barbaro, who's a tugging and willing second. He's an Old Salt is tucked in at the rail third and less than 2 from the the front. Californian Sam's Ace is just outside of Flashy Bull. They're together 4th and 5th and 3 off the lead. St. Augustus rides the rail. Doc Cheney and Sun River have 6 lengths to make up. High Blues is 10 from the front. Rehoboth has 11 to come, and Charming Image is at the back of the pack as they head midway on the backstretch in the 55th Florida Derby. Sharp Humor has company up front now from Barbaro, who's on the attack. Sharp Humor is only a neck in front. Barbaro is second. Sam's Ace in good striking position third. Sun River is fourth with at the rail St. Augustus in fifth. Flashy Bull still has 4.5 to come. Then comes Doc Cheney and High Blues. Rehoboth's got to go, and Charming Image is the trailer. 3 furlongs to run in the Florida Derby, and Sharp Humor and Barbaro are 1-2. Barbaro puts half a head in front. Sharp Humor right back at him in second. Sam's Ace is third. Sun River is 4 deep in fourth. He's an Old Salt is fifth. He's 3.5 lengths off the lead, and they run to the top of the stretch, and Barbaro struts his stuff. It is Barbaro to the final furlong. He is a neck in front of Sharp Humor, who will not go away. Barbaro only a head in front. Sharp Humor runs his heart out at the rail. Sun River a closing third. Barbaro, Sharp Humor, Barbaro's got him. Barbaro wins and remains undefeated on his way to Louisville. Barbaro beat Sharp Humor. Sun River third. Sam's Ace fourth.
Golden Song on the outside. Cost to Believe starts to move along the inside and will need racing room soon. They straighten away for the final 3/16. Sweet Northern Saint now has the lead and accelerates and draws away. Mr. Triester second. Cost to Believe is third. Lewis Michael on the rail fourth. Melby's coming on fifth, but in deep stretch. Kent DeSarmo will win the Illinois Derby again. Sweet Northern Saint strong in victory. He won it by nearly 7. Sweet Northern Saint impressive in victory over Mr. Triester. Cost to Believe. Lewis Michael was fourth.
Now to get you up to date with all the happenings in and around the track, let's saddle up with our own Carmen Thomas.
We've been waiting for this moment all winter, racing fans. It's opening weekend here at Hastings Racecourse. But the preparation it takes to get a horse ready for the races began months ago. The track opened to the horses to begin training for the very first time on January 25th at 8 a.m. sharp. This included trainer Anita Bolton and her horse, Anointed One. They were the first ones to set foot on the track, and with the winter off, the horses and trainers were all ready to go. Earlier, I spoke with trainer Alex Murray about the importance of starting horses off early in the season when it comes to training.
I very much like to get my young horses, 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds that haven't been around much, in early so they can start training early and get used to the routine and the various distractions when there's not many other horses here. And then as the time goes on over the weeks, more and more horses come, and they can get used to the increased traffic and the increased distractions gradually, as opposed to having a big shock in their system.
The first day of racing at the track was yesterday, and opening weekend continues today with a stakes race. Today is the Brighouse Bells for fillies and mares. This race has been moved to much earlier in the season than last year's June running, and could see horses like Slew Pass return to the season in this $50,000 race. This is a field that has opened up this season with 3 of last year's top contenders no longer running. First is Pretty Meadow. She's the winner of last year's Sun Handicap and the top filly and mare of last year. She's in foal in Kentucky. Next is Stormented. She too is being bred. And last is Budget Stables Champagne Royale. Champagne Royale is the first mare to be announced in foal to 2005 Preakness and Belmont Stakes winner of Fleet Alex. Hastings Racecourse's top rider and top apprentice jockey from last season will not be returning to race this year at Hastings. Justin Stein is headed east to race at Woodbine, much to the disappointment of his many fans. However, that left an absence of bug boys at the track. But it didn't last long. Jockey Anthony Stevens saw this as an opportunity for his cousin Mark Stevens, and it wasn't long before we had a new apprentice jockey. Mark Stevens has been racing at Santa Rosa Park in Trinidad, but like his cousin Anthony, decided it was time to head to Vancouver.
Well, first my cousin called me and he told me about coming over to Vancouver and that they wouldn't have a bug boy here this year. So I got all excited and wanted to come, and so I thought about it, and I have a couple of months of open day, so I'm pretty excited for it.
And we could see one more bug boy arrive shortly. Agent Wade Snow is bringing one of Mexico City's top apprentice jockeys, Mario Alberto Cruz Gutierrez.
He tacks 105 pounds. He's already won 65 races. He's got a 4-month extension on his apprenticeship, which will run through the fall here.
Steins' departure from the track not only left a bug boy position open, it also means the title for Hastings' top jockey is fair game. Steins' closest competition last year came from jockey Pedro Alvarado, who came in second with 104 wins to Steins' 148 wins. Alvarado had held the top jockey title several years in a row before Steins' impressive first season, but he ended last year injured. Now he's back though, and he's ready to take the top spot.
Good quality of riders here. I wish everybody good luck. I mean, I hear Ricky Frazier is coming over, and he's one of the best riders in Eastern Washington. So it's gonna be a good competition. Frank Fuentes, Jake Barton, they are a hell of a good riders. So we'll see.
And stay tuned for this week's Road to the Derby. We're only a few short weeks away until the 132nd running of the Derby from Churchill Downs. We'll be showing you all of the top races leading up to this event. I'm Carmen Thomas, and now you're back on track.
Time now for Sport of Kings trivia, and here is today's trivia question. Tell me the name of the jockey that won the 1978 Kentucky Derby and also took home the Epsom Derby. We'll have the answer in just a moment. Time now for the answer to today's trivia question. Steve Cawthon took home the 78 Kentucky Derby, also the Epsom Derby in 85 and 97.
Last weekend, one of North America's premier racetracks, Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington, Kentucky, opened up to resounding success. What you may not know about Keeneland, it is also the home of perhaps the #1 horse auction in the world.
As World War II interrupted racing, another door opened. The thoroughbred auction sales. Horse sales had long been a part of bluegrass culture. Keeneland had held an auction at the track in 1938, but the biggest, most prestigious sale was the yearling sale at Saratoga Springs in upstate New York. The same wartime transportation restrictions that made it difficult for Keeneland to race also prevented bluegrass breeders from getting their best yearlings to Saratoga. Bluegrass breeders wondered, many great horses are in Kentucky. Why not a sales center too? So the men decided to hold their own sale at Keeneland under a tent in the paddock. Yearlings at that first sale sold for an average price of $5,231, and hip number 134, later to be called Hoop Jr., would go on to win the Kentucky Derby. The sale was so popular, the tradition continued the following year. But while the war had brought a temporary shift in the way Kentucky horsemen sold their yearlings, it also created great opportunities. Many Kentucky horsemen were now selling both at Keeneland and at Saratoga. Saratoga had been the site of the premier American thoroughbred sale for as long as anyone could remember. So long, most had forgotten its origin. Ironically, it was none other than Hal Price Headley, J. O'Keene, and a familiar group of Kentucky breeders who had envisioned a select yearling sale at Saratoga in the first place. Saratoga in 1916 was a veritable who's who of society, stage, and government. But there were no yearling sales. At the initial conversation with Fazig Tipton, which sold only standard breds at the time, Headley said, "If you'll provide the auction, we'll bring you our best thoroughbreds from Kentucky." A 10-year contract between Kentucky horsemen and Fazig Tipton was signed, and thus began the Saratoga Thoroughbred Sales. In 1966, as Keeneland announced plans to build a new sales arena, a bay colt named Sir Ivor would change the course of Keeneland history forever. Sir Ivor was sold to Raymond Guest, the American ambassador to Ireland in 1966. Bred in Kentucky, Sir Ivor had a special connection to Keeneland beyond being sold there. Hal Price Headley had given the colt's mother Attica to his daughter Alice, saying, "Someday she might throw you a great horse." Irish trainer Vincent O'Brien ran Sir Ivor in the Epsom Derby. The Epsom was a grand affair and the toughest mile-and-a-half in the world. It was the same race the Kentucky Derby had been patterned after in 1875. "I couldn't believe we won," said Alice Chandler. Sir Ivor had never been tested beyond the mile. Neither could the rest of Europe. Vincent O'Brien had shown the world that North American thoroughbreds could adapt to the European training methods and win European classics. Suddenly, European buyers were extremely interested in spending a few days in Kentucky at the prestigious Keeneland Sale. Determined bidders with seemingly bottomless pockets helped drive up prices to virtually unbelievable levels. Among them was the Englishman Robert Sangster. He and Vincent O'Brien would be at the forefront of an international interest in Lexington that would take Kentucky horses and Keeneland to an entirely new level. But Europeans weren't the only ones with money to spend on Kentucky horses in the 1970s. Oil had just hit record prices, and the arrival of Dubai's Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum and his brothers only intensified the bidding wars, said Ted Bassett, who had joined Keeneland as assistant to Louis Hagen in 1968. "It was an exciting time," recalls Bassett. As prices rose to unbelievable levels, so did the anticipation. At the close of 1976, total sales for the year would exceed $71 million, a previously unfathomable figure. 3 years later, the numbers would double. By 1980, the Keeneland Sales were heralded by the arrival of a fleet of private jets and limousines. Bloodstock agents came with letters of credit for millions, an amount calculated to purchase 3 or 4 great horses or one superstar. The elaborate preparations, reviewing, and lavish parties that marked the modern transaction were a far cry from the formative years of the sale in the 1940s. In July of 1983, American buyer Wayne Lucas opened the bid on a Northern Dancer colt at $1 million. Then other bidders quickly took over. In only 45 seconds, a new record was set, $4,600,000. The bidding was fast, but the battle had just begun. At $6 million and rising, the bidding was where it had never been before. $7 million, and then $8, and then $9. All spending records had now been broken. Lucas and the other bidders had grown silent. The 2 remaining bidders were Sheikh Mohammed and the Englishman Robert Sangster. The excitement grew as these 2 giants pitted big money and their wits against each other, each topping the last bid. Sold $10,200,000. The high bidder was Sheikh Mohammed. Though Keeneland had early expansions, the enormous success of the thoroughbred auction sales in the 1970s and 80s paved the way for Keeneland's continued growth and expansion beyond its founders' wildest imaginings. Little Keeneland, as the track had been nicknamed in its early days, was now an internationally recognized epicenter of thoroughbred sales and racing. The track had come of age at Keeneland.
Don't go away. The Sport of Kings. We'll be right back.
Our program would not be complete if we didn't show you in its entirety Cecil Peacock's brother Derek's outstanding victory in the Santa Anita Derby. With this in mind, We put Brother Derek in our Vancouver province's Salute to the Champions.
The Salute to the Champions is brought to you by the Province Sports, where you can read racing columnist Tommy Walski every Friday. The Province Sports and Tommy Walski. It all starts here.
Point determined into the outside gate. Gates closed. They're all set for the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. And away they go, and Sacred Light went right down on his nose. Sacred Light stumbled badly at the start as last early on. Brother Derek immediately shooting off to the lead. On the inside, it's AP Warrior, content to take back second. Point Determined getting a perfect spot in third. Sacred Light has recovered, is now 6 off the leaders, and the long shot Wild Fang, the early trailer. They go to the 7/8s, and Brother Derek and Alex Elise have it all their own way. No competition. He slowed him down out here. Brother Derek, ears cocked, taking a nice good hold, and he's really relaxed out here. Leads them by 2. In the second spot is AP Warrior. Point Determined back in third. Sacred Light is the grey at the rail, and Wild Fang now dropped out to be last by 5. 5/8 of a mile to go, and Brother Derek, now he's keen to go on. He's starting to pull his way clear, and Brother Derek is now opening up. He's tugging his way along. He's opened up 4 lengths on him. AP Warrior, Point Determined wants to make an early move, and Point Determined now is taking third and getting closer to the leader. Sacred Light next, and still Wild Fang tailed off. Into the turn they go now, and Brother Derek a length and a quarter to AP Warrior. Point Determined now being pushed along from third. He's got to pick it up. Sacred Light losing ground. They're approaching the quarter pole in the Santa Anita Derby. Brother Derek and AP Warrior fall back to Point Determined third. A quarter of a mile to go now, and Brother Derek hasn't been asked to run yet. AP Warrior's trying to make a race of it. Point Determined third. Homeward bound in the big one, and Brother Derek just gets the rein shaken at him, and he glides past the 8th pole here. And Brother Derek well on his way to a very, very impressive win in the Santa Anita Derby. It's next up Kentucky Derby for the son of Benchmark. Brother Derek Cantor's own. Point Determined second, in AP Warrior.
Okay, that's it for this edition of the Sport of Kings, and on behalf of everybody, we would like to say once again thank you for letting us spend this last half hour with you on this Saturday morning. One thing to leave you with, remember, horse racing is back bigger, better than ever, right here at Hastings Racecourse. Remember, you're going to have to learn to keep them straight, or we're going to get you on that final turn.